I got a question. Do you have that franchise where you play one of the games, love it, but never got around to the rest of it? I often have a problem with this. Sometimes it's because I was a little child with little choices, or even when I got much older, I became more interested in playing more different experiences. That's kind of why I make videos like these, so I can extend my love for the games I already adore. I sort of did this with the original Mega Man games way back in 2018, though it was more of me going with the crowd to celebrate 11's release. As a result, those videos are partially plagiarized, and I hate those videos as a result. Don't watch other people's videos while you're making your own. That's my advice. But I did enjoy Mega Man Powered Up when I played it in 2014, and I still felt it was a great time when I tried all of them. I don't have a lot of memories with most of them, despite saying I did like many of them, I think. I only remember liking 2, 6, 9, and 11. And the rest I remember for the worst reasons. 3 and 4 come to mind immediately, though 2 did have its own set of issues. I did enjoy them enough to try out the rest of the sub-series, or more so sampled. I didn't care much for Battle Network or Star Force, sorry to say for those fans. I tried Zero and got way too frustrated, and ZX confused the hell out of me. We'll see how that holds up later. But the 2 games I fell in love with were Mega Man Legends, thanks to the characters and art style, and then there was Mega Man X. I knew this game was the big one for Mega Man fans. Even people who dabbled in the series were like, yeah, this thing is pretty sweet. And I was personally addicted. Every level was short and simple, but they still had nooks and crannies that required weapons and upgrades to uncover. I mean, you do get the dash boots literally on your way to Chill Penguin. That one's kind of the outlier. I thought the wall cling was useful enough. This beats every classic game to the curb alone. But the idea that I can speed past the levels was just so fun. With some injuries. Yeah, I got a patience problem, what of it? Thankfully, the heart containers and sub-tanks alleviate that. Sub-tanks are an improvement over the one-time E-tanks. Instead, any of the health pickups that you grab will be stored in these permanent additions to your arsenal. The upgrades are a fantastic addition, though maybe the idea of a dying light giving them to you is a bit of an omen. The half defense and powerful charge shot is enough to ignore that warning sign. The Buster upgrade can even increase the potency of your weapons. Really, all of these are still some of the best in the series. Though they can be unreliable occasionally. Please get the sub-tank, I don't have all day. And the robot masters you fight for them are excellent in their designs and their strategies. Except for Armored Armadillo, this guy can take a bit if you don't have his weakness. But once you do have their weaknesses, they tend to fall apart. And you don't even need to be reminded of Spark Mandrill. Like, look at this Jamoke. Ow. It does make for one of the easier Mega Mans, especially once you collect all 4 sub-tanks, all 8 heart tanks, and the body upgrade. But I think that makes for a great starting point for the series, and I think it was for many. Add in the 90s grit with X, the next generation robot Dr. Light created, being this military-grade robot that can destroy the entire planet, alongside artilleristic level themes and the main villain not being Wily, not even being related, but a terroristic reploid known as Sigma. Yeah, that's his name, Sigma.
X-Men love for Star Wars can't get me a woman. Even my right hand is Boba Fett, why can't the women just love me?
Ah, hell with it, you're a lost cause. Hadouken! But the rest of it is one I'm less familiar with. Like, I'm familiar with X4 and its cutscenes, and I'm familiar with X6 and 7 for being complete trash, but that's kind of it. And you know, for some reason, I was in the mood to play Mega Man X, and I kind of wanted to see where the rest of the series went, so let's actually go through this series that actually spawned from this masterpiece, and see if it all compares to the original, or if it's just downhill from here on out. It's downhill, but let's see how far it goes. I'm not just talking about the standard 8 either. We also got the RPG, the 2 Game Boy Color games, the remake on PSP, and I'm also going to include the 4 Zero games as well as the 2 ZX games, since they are canonical sequels. But let's get back to Mega Man X. So how would you improve on a nearly perfect game? The only thing I can think of is just building upon the world you created. There's that Dr. Kane fellow in the beginning warning label. Maybe meet and learn about him. Maybe get more than a Boba Fett wannabe. I mean, Val works fine, but he's just kind of boring as he is. Really, keep up with the cool weapons and the fun boss fights, and we're all good. Well, there goes a casualty. So our story begins 6 months after Sigma's attack, dealing with the rest of his followers. Some of these followers, known as the X-Hunters, are trying to resurrect not only Sigma, but also Zero. Yeah, I missed him in the original summary. This guy was the main Maverick Hunter in X's ranks. An S-Class Hunter, as they will be classified as. I didn't really talk about him only because he's not much of an entity in Mega Man X. Just someone you want to emulate is the idea. Hell, this guy is supposed to be the original design for X. They just thought it'd be too radical of a design, so instead we got Mega Man with a triangle on his head. But these freaks apparently want Zero's parts so they can keep him in their ranks to destroy X. Interesting idea. Shame these guys are less interesting than Sigma, or hell, even Vile. I had to go back through my footage to write out their names. They're that forgettable. I mean, their designs are out there, but I wouldn't call them good by any stretch. What the hell is going on with this guy? The only new design I find decent is Dr. Kane. Yeah, established character, first introduction. Capitalization, X. And he just looks like an older Dr. Wily. He's just kind of here, and he only appears in 3 games and is only mentioned in a couple more. So why is he important? Well, he was the reason X was resurrected from a 100-year-long hibernation. And it gives him the idea of making robots just like him known as Reploids. Replicant androids. Yeah, the dude isn't much of a creator, just an imitator. And these actions do lead to the Maverick attacks. I'll talk about the greater details later, but the point is, this is the man responsible for the events that happen in Mega Man X, the Zero series, and the ZX games. The path of darkness is paved with good intentions, and the pavement is inevitable when your name is fucking Kane! With all that said, our job is to take out the X-Hunters, rebuild and reclaim Zero, and steal from the brand new Mavericks. Gotta say, not a stronger lineup from before. I do like a good chunk of them. There's a deer with fire antlers, I like that. And they turn blue halfway through the fight, I like that touch a lot. There's a wheel alligator, I shouldn't have to explain why that's cool. They had the balls to make a Maverick from a sponge. I don't like his fight, but it's a funny little guy and I appreciate it. There are a few more, but honestly, they don't really do it for me compared to the original cast. The shout out to Magna Centipede, I hate this fight. Any fight that takes away any ability is immediately the worst fight. Unless you have a boss healing themselves for ungodly amounts of HP, but thankfully the series doesn't do anything like that, I'm sure of it. You know what, that's a good segue to what I think of the game. Personally speaking, I don't think X2 was quite on the level of X1. The level design is much more complex, and they tend to have more hazards and set pieces, which makes for some aggravating level design. I like Flamestack as a character design, but god, his stage is a mess. The point where the magma rises seems far too fast, especially when you got a heart tank being guarded by an enemy wall. I don't care if I die at this point. The heart tanks in Overdrive Ostrich and Wheelgator are pretty cruel in their methods as well. Anyone else think that the weapons here kinda suck too? Most of them are super situational, especially when they're charged. Shout out to this point in Morthmoth stage. Nothing tells you to use the spin wheel here, unless you get the head upgrade where it's just scans for secrets. Cool. One addition with the upgrades I do like is the air dash you get from the legs. Since you have the dash by default, hallelujah for that. It does make this guy kind of a bitch though. It's sick backflips. One thing I do enjoy with the level design is that they all have split pathways, and these pathways can lead to fights with these clowns. Whether you take down all 3 or maybe none of them depends on whether you fight Zero or not at the end. Failing to take them all forces you to fight a brainwashed Zero with Sigma by his side. Take the hits, take the hits, take the hits, take the hits, oh god it hurts! Eventually he snaps out of it, and we then fight... fucking Wolverine.
My love for Marvel keeps all the girls away from me. Why can't I find love?
He's certainly more aggressive than he was last time. No, seriously, he was a bitch in X1.
Thank you.
And he gets more aggressive when he turns into a fucking wireframe. Doesn't come completely out of nowhere, this game sprinkles this stuff here and there. Hell, they start off with X flipping his head at the beginning. We get it guys, you found some pipe cleaners, it's very cute. This is actually not Sigma per se, but more specifically the Sigma virus. I like this idea, that Sigma all along is this corrosive entity that can corrupt anybody. And it also means that his influence is much easier to spread. It also makes us an easy excuse for sequels. He also has the typical "this cannot happen to me" speech where he talks about Zero being the last of the Doctor's creations. I have no idea what he's talking about, except I kinda do. But it's a nice mysterious twist to this pretty boy. No, I am going to be moving on to Xtreme, but before I do, I gotta talk about something. I didn't really find a good place to actually talk about it. I segued a little too fast to the final boss, but... fuck Sorgus! I had to remember his name because I got a lot of beef with him. Now, I have some problems with many of the boss fights, being more annoying than challenging. And the fights with the X-Hunters are more or less just there. Nevertheless, your second round with each of them tend to be whatever. Except Sorgus over here, believing that he can bombard you with junk while you're fighting for your life on a few platforms over the insta-kill spikes. The new Giga Crush is helpful in destroying the shield, but his hitbox is so fucking tiny and the better weapons against him have a hard time connecting to the old fuck. X2 would have been a solid 8, but this one fight, and Magma Centipede just drop it down a few pegs. God, this fight was hell. I hope to never fight him again. This is foreshadowing. Okay, alright. Let's move on to X3 before I completely explode. Actually, now I'm saying that out loud, I probably shouldn't have done that rant before talking about this game. Oh god, what the hell is this pixel art? This is ass. Oh yeah, I'm in such a pissy mood now. So there's this guy named Dr. Doppler, right? Yeah, we got another forgettable fuck to deal with. He made a utopia and he went, now I'm going to make my utopia cause chaos. Why? Beats me, but X and Zero gotta stop him. Oh yeah, now Zero is in on the action. Selectively. So Zero can be selected at any time, and he's kinda neat to play as. Double shot in the saber is always nice, but it's a shame it's the opposite of always, since you use them until a checkpoint and you can't use them for bosses. Why? As far as I know, it's an energy saving measure from the rebuild. I don't know, that's all I got. Playing as Zero is kind of the only nice thing I can say about this game though. This game is so ass. First off, the music is so fucking repetitive. I never talked about the music in the previous two, but the original had some of the best music on the SNES, Armored Armadillo and Storm Eagle being my favorites. X2 isn't quite as good, it's got a lot of guitar synth that grades on the ears, but I can't say no to Crystal Snail or Wire Sponge. X3 just doesn't stick with me at all. The closest of any of these I like are Blast Hornet, Toxic Seahorse, or Vile Stage, but I tend to forget them pretty much after I finish them. Speaking of the bosses, I can't stand the fights themselves. Maybe Volt Catfish, but only because drilling a catfish will never not be funny. It's also the only weakness I got right, who would have guessed? I'm not a sociopath. Toxic Seahorse looks derpy as hell, but his acid is a pain to avoid. Hornet's bees are annoying, Crawfish's claws are annoying, these two new guys are annoying, didn't even bother to know their names. My notes said, fuck the fast fuck and the big guy. Seems nice at least. Vile's fight is the only exception, I guess. Glad to know they made him more interesting. The only annoying shit about him is his stage, which is not only hidden inside one of the stages, not telling you where, but you got shit to avoid that you can't expect. I love dodging out of sight boulders. The level design overall is pretty reckless. I swear it's impossible to avoid any form of damage in any of these stages. Volt Catfish especially, and the worst part about it is that Mega Man X3 has a higher damage rate for some godforsaken reason. Probably because this was made by a different team, I guess. Whatever it is, it's a pain in the ass. Speaking about another design flaw, shout out to this platform that requires a charged gravity well. Only time I used any of these forgettable weapons. Oh, never mind, there was this one time I used a charged Triad Thunder. Had to Google this one. Actually, scratch that, I had to Google both actually. This game's visual cohesion is flawless. But oh, this is not the worst of the bullshit level design. So I need to talk about the armor upgrades. I mean, I don't remember what they did except for one, the leg upgrades. This gives you the ability to boost not only in the air but also upward. On paper, this is kind of awesome. The devs really want you to use this. The point of the upgrade should be to make your experience easier, not required to go through the game. Now, I'm pretty sure it is possible to go through the game without it, and you don't until the Sigma stages. Doppler Stage 1 is a piece of shit. Spike ceilings that beat you down with 1 pixel's worth of wiggle room, and once you pass through that hell, the walls! Doppler was confusing. I seemed to be healing the fucker, only to realize that his electric move healed him if you attacked him. Gotcha. We killed the elderly, but then, oh, would you have guessed, the antivirus software made itself useful. Yeah, Doppler was corrupted by Sigma. Who would have expected that? And we also know about a new body underground that we need to destroy before Sigma gets to it. Well, never mind, he got to it. Maybe I shouldn't have wasted time filling up my sub-tanks. Then again, he was so obnoxious that the grind seemed to have been worth it. Also, he's now Captain America. I'm going to guess he watches the MCU without understanding the themes.
Fuck the Nazis. Also surrender to my empire.
I'm aware that this is not Sigma male behavior. I just wanted to keep doing the voice because it's funny. Now that I think about it, he does come off as one of those alpha males. That's definitely Tiny Scrub behavior. The hitbox seems to be as big as well, and the constant horse shit didn't help either. Then they pulled this shit. Not even the magical edition of Rookie Hunter mode in the Legacy Collection would do me any favors. And because of that, I quit. Fuck this game, I hate it. And you know, now that I think about it, this might actually be the most worthless game in the series, X or otherwise. It's not the worst one, but it's definitely the one that I would rather go back to the least out of all of these games. Maybe. Before I lock that in, I should probably just move on. And we'll see if that holds up. Now, this would technically be the end of the Super Nintendo era. The version of X3 on the Legacy Collection is the original SNES. Though this was on the PlayStation as well as PC and even Saturn, which was the version on the original Mega Man X collection on PS2, which had Mega Man X 1 through 6. Had to complete the collection on that console, I suppose. Actually, let me know if any of you played it on the Saturn. Maybe it was a better version of the game. God, I'm hoping it was a better version. The next game on the list also had a Saturn port, and I'm convinced no one played either of these on that corpse, so it's not worth talking about. I'm actually not even sure why I even talked about it in the first place. Unlike the themes, because the X series from this point on get a hell of a lot more political, and yes, this is the main thesis of this video, you better buckle the fuck up. If there was one game I was anxious about, it was Mega Man X4. The reason I say anxious is that I hear so many people fall head over heel with this one, even saying that they prefer it over the original, and I was worried that I wouldn't enjoy it as much as them. Given that, I should praise the game right off the start. They got the animation team from Mega Man 8 to create the cutscenes, and dude, it's so great to see this 90s static anime style. And fortunately, they got the voice talent as well.
I'm disappointed in you, Colonel. Ah! What do you think you're doing?
But Zero, what if I become one of the Mavericks?
Don't ask such a silly question. I'm breaking contact now.
No, this isn't happening. There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
At least 10 sequels and 2 spin-offs. I should be more specific. Zero has the cutscene privilege. S gets the standard intro and an existential crisis at the end. It's very clear that Inafune really wanted to make Zero the main attraction, and it becomes more apparent much later. But one step at a time. So the story revolves around the Replicors, a military brand of Replays that Dr. King created to increase productivity to the Maverick Hunters and reduce Maverick activity. A surveillance state, essentially. I'm starting to think the man named Kane might be in the wrong here. I'm glad that old man is dead. Though his efforts still lead to more chaos, as the Replicors create a new nation, as they feel they are being accused for being ineffective in decreasing Maverick activity, as well as destroying the Sky Lagoon. Obviously Sigma is behind the chaos, but the Replicors, more specifically the Colonel and General, act so oblivious to their actions. And it creates a ridiculous clash not only for X, but more personally Zero, as he has a closer relationship with the Colonel and his sister Iris. How do Reploid families work? It's not important. Also, why do you have a playable battle between the Colonel in X's story, but it's just a cutscene in Zero's story? Hell, like I said earlier, X is inconsequential within the story. Sure, he has a small amount of guilt for possibly being a threat, but Zero gets a much more powerful punch to the dick. Not only are the people he cares about being corrupted and killed, literally having to kill the Colonel and Iris for the greater good, but at the end where he meets up with the Grim Sigma,
I killed my chances of meaningful relationships so I can be alone.
and he learns a crucial bit of Zero's history as a Maverick, and because of that, it caused Sigma to become a Maverick as well. Why? Well, that'll be explained a bit later. I do like this bit where Sigma asks Zero about this incident, despite telling the story. The story is poorly told, but the message is clear. That idiots in power is a very bad idea, even if they sacrifice themselves to reverse their mistakes. The Colonel deserved it, though. Maybe Iris being caught in the crossfire is a bit sad, but we don't know much about her outside of the fact that she doesn't like seeing people fight. This also goes for this guy, Double, who assists X to take down the Mavericks. We know nothing about him until the point where he is revealed to be a spy. He's also jacked with red sclera, so that's extra proof that he's an evil son of a bitch. I also predicted this twist because his name is Double. Also, he's a pain in the ass. Anyway, what do we have in terms of the game itself? Well, first off, this is the first game in the 32-bit era, so of course the graphics got a bump, and damn, this game is pretty. Sony was hell-bent on rejecting the game, since 3D was the next big thing, and I'm sure the game didn't grab an audience because of it. But Capcom wanted to make what they wanted, and because of this, the game is held in high regard nowadays. The music also transitioned from hard rock and metal to something more contemporary, more EDM. It's nice on the ears, though it's a soundtrack that I failed to get stuck in my head. I assume it's because my exposure to the game is relatively new. Now, I think this is the best time to talk about ride armors. While the previous games had these things, hell, the original game had this fucker in one at all times. Same with X3, and X3 also had a very weird system for the things. I didn't really use them all that much, honestly. X4 is where they are more prominent. The bike armor from X2 is the entire centerpiece of the Marine base, and the Raiden, the combat armor, is prominent in the volcano and military terrain. In the former, you actually had the option to take out Magma Dragoon in said armor, making for great defense. Also, this was the guy that destroyed the Sky Lagoon just so he could fight X. That is the dumbest reason to go Maverick, rest in piss. These Mavericks are some of the better bosses in the X series, though I have to question some of their names, like Web Spider. Web Spider is such a redundant name and doesn't elaborate on his electric attacks. Slash Beast is also pretty redundant. Do beasts not usually maul their enemies? And Storm Owl sounds incredibly similar to Storm Eagle, who was also a flying foe in charge of a military jet. There is one boss fight that I cannot stand though, and it's this jackass, Split Mushroom. He's way too fast, the timing of his clone can screw up your rhythm, and his weakness from both X and Zero require you to pretty much stand in place. Actually, I realized that I never used the electric web on Split Mushroom in any of the fights with him. I just took the damage and hope he went down before I did. The Raging Geki, though, I never liked using this thing in any context. This was the only time I ever used it, I think. This is where X and Zero differ quite a lot, actually. Zero is much more close combat oriented, and the weapons you get reflect that. Most of them don't use energies, so you can experiment freely without consequence. X's weapons, though... damn, I don't like many of them. I like the electric web for exploration, and the Twin Slasher and Ground Hunter are wonderful offensive alternatives. But that's kind of it. They become much more efficient once you get the body upgrade, where uncharged weapons become free of use, meaning the Twin Slasher allowed me to transform into a rail shooter, essentially. Also, what is the use of the charged soul body? Like, this felt like the only time where charging a weapon actively worsens it. Which doesn't mean much, the soul body kind of blows anyway. This is the one thing that makes me disagree with the X4 diehards. I just think X1 has a much better selection of weapons. Though X4 does have plenty of things going for it. As much as I love X1, the final boss between each Sigma phase was pretty simple to get the hang of. I mean, the Grim Reaper shit is still easy as piss. But once the second phase hits, the fight becomes a game of wit, trying to aim his scythe at the wall and finding ways to avoid what seems to be difficult attacks. But once he's down, it's not over, since you have to face what I can only describe as Eldritch abominations. God, what is wrong with your face?
This skin cream is not doing it for me anymore.
X4 is a great time, and I see why people love it so much. It's just not being the original anytime soon, but it's definitely on the second place pedestal. Now we're on the 5th entry, and I knew a few things going in. I knew X5 was supposed to be the final game in the series, and Inafune wanted to move on to another series we'll talk about later. I also knew about the Maverick names. If you weren't aware, the English translator Alison Court renamed the Mavericks after the members of Guns N' Roses, as a tribute to her then husband Eric Suzuki. As a fan of the band myself, I am very pleased with the results. Squid Adler, Izzy Glow, Duff McWhalen, Axel the Red, I guess Axel Rose was a little too on the nose. I didn't get the Skyver at first, which is a reference to one of their collaborators, Michael Monroe. I would have suggested Trot Sorum myself. Man, I'm now psyched, let's start things off. So it starts with this schmuck talking to Sigma. Yeah, no, you can't fool me, that's Sigma.
I am the dark of the night, mysterious and lonely.
He's really going all in towards Zero, so we... Oh my god, why does X look like he's melting? For some reason, I had the blending filter on for this game, and since my recording setup is like this, I didn't really notice it right away. This was also something I left on for X6 for some reason, but honestly, it's fitting that way. Why is this the default for a Legacy Collection? I can't answer that, nor the question of why the collection is split into 2 parts, or the exclusion of a few games, which I will bitch about later. I will also not question the idea of the Statue of Liberty being a robot, therefore being susceptible to the Sigma virus. The idea of fighting Sigma sounds too good to be true, and lo and behold, the defeat of Sigma allows the release of the virus all around the world. And because of this, we need more help. Narratively speaking, not physically, we're not that lucky. We got the communications leader Alia, the mechanic Douglas. The names and designs are far too similar, and also Douglas? Not Douglas? Whatever. And finally, Commander Signet. Oh, come on, that's just Sigma. Even his name is eerily similar. Methinks they spend the most time on only one of these characters. Okay, the new villain got something in design at least. This is Dynamo, a guy that seems to only exist as a nuisance. Look, it didn't even take 20 seconds to beat him. What does Georgia have to do with this? If you want me to talk about the story, it really isn't much of anything this time. The goal is to destroy this space colony with the Enigma in order for it to not collide with the Earth, because a global cybernetic pandemic isn't enough of an issue. The Enigma is a laser cannon with a current accuracy rate of 32%, and then the rebuilt Enigma has a 33% accuracy rate. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, Enigma is a perfect name for this piece of shit. You're not getting this thing to work, so Plan B involves building back a shuttle to destroy the damn thing. I guess sacrifices are necessary at some points. You're not getting much of a story until that shuttle lands. You do get some great interactions with the Mavericks. There are even some that are willing to cooperate until the virus infects them. Grizzly Slash being a good example. Wait, Crescent Grizzly? I feel like I've been lied to. Yeah, they changed the names in the Legacy Collection, and to be honest, I'm a little mad that most of these... I mean, Dark Necrobat and Volt Kraken are better names, granted. But you can't tell me that Shining Firefly is better than Izzy Glow, or Tidal Whale is better than Duck McWhalen. Come on, that is a badass name. Corny, but badass. Did Capcom think that they were going to get sued by Guns N' Roses? The most I'd see them talking about is the fact that Axl Rose was right there. While we're on the Mavericks, the levels and fights are kind of not great. The boss fights take forever. Even if you get the weakness, you could be subjected to making the fight even longer. By the way, the weapons suck. The Tri-Thunder is the only decent weapon, and it's just that weapon from Mega Man the First. The Wings Power would be okay if aiming it felt right in any capacity. And the rest of them are either incredibly situational or really awkward to use. The level design for the Maverick stages can have some quirks as well. Like the giant ship chasing you in McWhalen stage, the extremely fast time bombs in the Skyburst stage, the lasers in front of Grizzly Slash's trains. Like, how are you supposed to avoid the... Wait, you can crouch now? When the hell can you do that? And just about everything in Squid Idler's stage. The first half of the stage with the bike armor is strict when you aren't going for the obviously important collectibles. And these stupid time-limited electric keys where you need to avoid electric gates. 20 minutes, guys. This took me 20 fucking minutes. Ugh. This isn't even getting into the random Sigma heads that try to corrupt your innards. Can you stop staring at me? You're creeping me out. Ah! There are some other level design quirks, more specifically a lot of spiked floors and ceilings. And that's so you can incorporate X's armor upgrades. You got 4 different upgrades this time. The 4th armor is basically X4's ultimate armor that you can use when choosing X at the beginning. And this game's ultimate armor is pretty much a modified version you get way too fucking late in the game. Unless you put a cheat code at the start. Side note, Zero gets this pissy little buster shot if you choose him at the beginning. Don't choose Zero at the beginning. The Falcon armor allows you to fly for a few seconds, and you're completely invulnerable while doing so. Great for filling up the E and W tanks. Oh yeah, the W tank was also introduced in X4, and I'll be honest, not really that useful. The loss of 2 E tanks is felt here. And the Gaia armor allows you to touch spikes and disable special weapons. This sucks dick. But if you want those heart tanks, boy howdy, you better suffer with it. This also means X is going to be tougher since X and Zero can't share heart tanks. Oh, and you can't use the parts separately. You have to wait for them to be complete. Why? Padding. Joy. Zero can actually interact with the light capsules this time, and you get different dialogue when you do so. An interesting decision, especially when you learn who built Zero in the first place. Speaking of, let's get into the ending. As we take Zero into the shuttle and it crashes into the space station. It unfortunately fails and instead seems to have corrupted Zero, partially thanks to the voice of a particular person. Because of this, Zero goes Maverick and taunts X into a fight. But not before X has to avoid Zero viruses that are pretty easy to dodge, a myriad of lasers, I'm certain this is the only time I use Darkhold, fight a Shadow Devil, Jesus Christ, and fight Rangdabanga once again. Also yeah, that thing is called Rangdabanga. I forgot to talk about that little tidbit. We get the ultimate armor, game over to wear it because you can't wear it immediately for some reason, and then be distracted by the Dr. Wily logo. Yep, Zero was created by Wily, who would have guessed? And that voice before Zero's awakening isn't kidding. This is the best of his creations. Zero is fucking pissed. But not as pissed as he was in X2, so stay down. I have to assume that Zero was created once he learned about X's creation, considering Wily is a vindictive old man that wants to show up light. Now that does create some questions, like why didn't Zero take out X during his hibernation and maybe take out Light in the process? Wily is quite an odd duck. But maybe Zero needed to be in deep sleep as long as X. Who knows. What is interesting is that Wily would have won even after his death if it weren't, funnily enough, for the main villain. Going back to X4, while he was a Maverick Hunter, Sigma fought Zero and destroyed the entry crystal on his forehead. That obviously was the source of the virus, and he was removed of it. Now you might be saying that X would overcome Zero, but the original game implies that X is the hunter he is because of Zero. So that's more ambiguous in how things could have gone. And after the Zero fight, X does get hurt. And before Sigma takes X out, Zero protects X so he can fight another day, or in this case, just a little bit later. I'm only going to assume Sigma didn't have enough energy to take out X afterward.
I need to meditate and recharge, goodbye.
But it not only shows that Zero is X's greatest inspiration, it shows that X and Zero are the best of bros. Despite being made by two completely different people ideologically, they came to share the same goal. Help people in the world and stop a war that this guy created, by destroying the source that created the war. Influence coming from the weirdest places. Putting all the philosophy aside, X5 is just a fine enough game. There's nothing really memorable about it, except for a few music tracks and the Maverick names. Frankly, that'll be the only thing I remember in 5 years' time. But I will say this, if this was the true end of the X series, I think it would have been an alright way to go out. But it isn't the end, and this was the link to Inafune's next Mega Man series. But when you have something that prints you out money, you want to keep it going. That's kind of the Mega Man mantra for the following decade. But a month earlier, we got Mega Man Xtreme on Game Boy Color, with a sequel less than a year later. I'm not going to speak much into these two, mostly because they don't have much to give. They're basically greatest hits medleys of X1, X2, and exclusively for the sequel, X3. There are stories in some respect. The Mavericks are resurrected by Sigma in Xtreme 1, and a new character in the form of Burkana in Xtreme 2, erasing the souls of Reploids to research them. For torture. I love her design, as well as her henchman I can't remember the name of right now. I just like witches, what of it? The idea of sacrificing people for research is already disturbingly close to home, whether you're talking physically or socially. The United States loves its social experiments, for better or mostly for worse. Outside of the moral quandaries of a soul-sucking witch, there's not a whole lot about either of these that I find interesting. The level designs are more or less the same, with some odd quirks this game seems to create. Bosses can be either easier or harder because of the hardware. Some of the items are shuffled around, which is kinda neat. Some of the music is slightly better than the original pieces, I guess. Speaking of pieces, there's this new character in Xtreme 1, Mitty. He's kinda cute. He has an evilish twin brother that is linked to him, so when they die, he dies. How does that work? I'm not exactly feeling the emotional core here. Core. I don't know, there really isn't much to say about either of the— Oh my god, why the hell is this geezer back?! Also, why does Sigma have a cat mouth?
I want to lick my butthole.
Well, I got nothing else to add. Let's just move. Oh god, I wish I had more to say. Then again, we should get this over with. You know about Mega Man X6. It's one of the worst Mega Man games ever made by the vast majority of people. And I was not looking forward to it. Now, as far as the start of the game, you got this dude, Gate, who finds a fragment of this wreckage of the space colony. I keep calling it the space colony. I know it has a name. I'm just too stupid to write it down, and I don't care enough to remember what it is. Anyway, he gets the fragment, and now he's an evil little freak. He is also, as we learn later in the game, Alia's former business partner, which is a neat little piece of character building. I mean, it would be if the script wasn't rushed and also badly translated. Plot points are quickly brushed over, certain characters just seem to exist. Zero comes back because he hit himself and he repaired himself. Bullshit on all of that. I appreciate the arm bump, but I don't buy the idea that you hid with your nearly obliterated clump of circuits. Oh well, he's back with us, though considering X has a saber, my question is why bother? He's still fun to play with, but I'll wait to play him in his own games in a moment. But how did we meet? Well, it was thanks to fighting a virus fake from one of these portals. These portals can also lead you to another unit, Hymax. Do not fight this fucker! At least not until you've gotten a few weapons, because he's completely unaffected by the Buster, nor the Giga Crush. And even if you got his weakness, you're in for the fight of your life. But if you do try your luck, and I did out of pure stubbornness, you get a chance to get the gate early. similar to X5 with the Enigma and Shuttle, though there you get to do so before fighting a single Maverick, which is not recommended with some of the horseshit you're dealing with, even if you have Rookie Hunter mode on. Oh, speaking of which, you're damn right I used Rookie Hunter mode for the gate stages. What the fuck is this level design? Did they play Mega Man 4 and thought they could go farther? This is also a perfect place for Zero for the double jump alone. Now that I say that out loud, he's not completely worthless, thankfully. Ugh, the bosses. Too fast, too tough, too strong. And you know what? Since I didn't fight every Maverick, I'm very glad I had to fight some of these only once. I tried to go through Magician stage several times. This was a pain in the dick. Should have turned on Rookie Hunter for this stage, sure. But if I actually got to this asshole by the end, I might have broken my Switch. To be a bit more positive, just to lower my blood pressure, I don't mind the weapons I got from the ones I did fight. The Yammer option has 3 little guys shooting the opposition alongside you, and the Metal Anchor flopping around is fun. Though the charge variant is annoying to keep going since it stops once you get hit. The other weapon I got was Guard Shield, and I didn't use that one nearly as much. It's not Rolling Shield, I'll tell you that for free. I can only assume the rest are okay as well, if these are any indication. The soundtrack is surprisingly great. Nothing against X4 and X5, but this is my favorite soundtrack of the trilogy. I love Sheldon and Yanmark's stage theme specifically. Magician stage is good, though I can't think of the beginning of the song without thinking Final Countdown. I'm not sure if that's a dig or not. Another mixed feeling I have is the part system. X5 had these chips as well, and they felt just as worthless as they are here. Maybe I needed to experiment more, but I didn't notice the perks all that much. There's certainly not a major reason to grab hostages. This was also a holdover from X5, but this time, you gotta get them as soon as possible because these creepy fucks will corrupt them. If they're caught, they're declared dead, and you don't get anything from them. And there are other armors, but like X5, you have to complete them, and since I didn't go through every stage, I mean, all this is kind of your fault, Pops. Don't sass me, boy. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. This game has only one unlockable armor. You have a downgraded Falcon armor starting out. Probably because the level design is not made for regular X. This game isn't rushed in any regard, don't you worry. Is that it? Okay, time to complain about Gate. This fucker is a joke. Not because I had Rookie Hunter, though that didn't help in his favor. But since your defense is only halves, the fact that you take no damage from any of his attacks is pathetic. Why the fuck is he level 1? The majority of Pokemon would kill this fucker. Also, he thought bringing back Sigma would help him? Did you really think bringing back the Reploid equivalent to Hitler was going to help you out? I'm pretty sure the AFD would try it if they could, though the results would be both terrifying and pointless. Yes, you reanimated a corpse. Now we can finally put the bullet inside him ourselves. I do like the idea of a zombified Sigma as the final boss. He's piss easy and the second phase isn't much better, but kudos for trying something different. Mega Man X6 is trash, and honestly, there's not a lot more to say than that. Is it better than X3? By a smidge, honestly. At least X6 is a bastardization of Mega Man X that's easy to laugh at. X3 is just frustrating, yet forgettable. And the weapons, the few I got anyway, are better than the ones in X3, so good job X6, you're not the worst. Now let's talk about Mega Man Zero. Anyone else getting some Metroid Fusion vibes? If classic Mega Man was like Astro Boy, I'd say that Mega Man X is more like Ghost in the Shell, with Mega Man Zero being akin to RoboCop or Terminator. This game's plot gets fucking dark. I mean, there's some levity, like with Sail here, and some of the game's Mavericks are pretty goofy. Yet this game starts out with a slimmer Zero with his back connected to a wall. That's a creepy image, and the fact his arms are completely gone, if this guy was human, I could imagine an M rating on the front of the box. Even still, humans actually spew out blood when they get shot, like holy shit, they did not hold back. Going back to CL, her goal is to find the original Zero because of the authoritative rule of Mega Man X. Yeah, Mega Man X. This was teased in Mega Man X5, where he wanted to create Elysium, where Reploids and humans live in peace, kinda like how America was supposed to be. Unfortunately, it's similar to what America is like now, where some freedoms are given, but if you're labeled a Maverick, for whatever reason, you're hunted down and killed, or retired as CL refers to it. She's a scientist for the Resistance, a group of humans and Reploids that left Elysium. Oh no wait, it's called Neo Arcadia. My bad. I enjoy talking with... God, I'm getting tired of looking at this stupid filter. Make no filters the default! Christ, you fucking idiots! Pixel art is beautiful as it is, just leave it alone. And if you prefer the blended filter, I hope you're put into an asylum. Anyway, talking to these guys makes for a sense of community, which I appreciate. You can talk to this Cyclops-looking guy to look at info on people, enemies, and bosses. And you can hop onto one of these trans servers to teleport to another location, or look at cyber elves. Oh Christ. Cyber elves are these little pixies that give you certain abilities, at the expense of their lives. Many of which were self-aware of this, and it's like they were drafted into the military. And some of these fuckers have to be filled with crystals to evolve them. And I don't mean make them stronger, you have to evolve them so they can become usable. I don't like cyber elves, and I'm pretty convinced that the devs didn't care for them either, since in order to get better ranks, you can't use any of them. Not like good ranks are really worthwhile. I didn't care for them in the PS1 X games. I don't really care for them here. Honestly, even if I wanted to use them, I don't see much of the benefits. I used the ones that gave you a health refresh because sub-tanks were pretty difficult to find. Which sucks because Zero is pretty fucking difficult as it is. This is widely considered one of the hardest games in the series, and it's not just because the bosses hit really hard, or the fact that many are incredibly quick, or that you don't get any defense upgrades, or at least permanent ones. But the game is very stingy with the checkpoints and lives. The stages aren't too long for the first half, but once you go through the later missions, you're trekking a good long while. This is probably why they added this save assist for the Zero collection. And I highly recommend you turn that bitch on. Sometimes it's overkill, but if it saves time, they can spam the damn things for all I care. I wonder how many people complain about this. Like, all it does is save time. You still have to worry about the bosses and hazards, and they are pretty tough as is. And honestly, these checkpoints are the one thing that transported Zero from an okay and frustrating game to actually one of my favorites in the series. Not for nothing, I already loved playing Zero in Mega Man X, and he feels just as great here. Hell, the Z-Buster is much more usable in this than it was in X5, though the drawback is its own power. The Z-Saber is more powerful at the expense of getting up close and personal. Additionally, you got two more weapons in the form of a staff and a boomerang shield, getting all Captain America up in here. Man, everyone loves Captain America, don't they? I did have to get used to them, but once they leveled up, they became really fun to use. Not as much as the Saber, but they still had their uses. I love this new idea of leveling up your weapons in this game. It was fun having the option to charge your weapons in X. In fact, you still do here. That's how you go Captain America with your shield. But having these weapons get stronger attributes after every level up, that is something I can get down with. One small issue I have with Zero, though, is the fact that you don't get weapons from Mavericks. Not necessarily because I want the tradition to continue here, but because it makes finding the weaknesses pretty boring. You only get 3 elemental chips very early on: fire, ice, and electricity. There are some Mavericks that have no weakness at all, and those make for the most interesting fights, excluding this Ninja Freak, especially when he's the only one with a desperation attack at the end. Fuck you dearly. He really did seem like an outlier to the rest of the main villains. These guys have potential to be major threats, and then you have X. More specifically, a copy of X. This was quite a twist, and it was effective showing him right at the end. Even more so when he gets so fucking aggressive and also becomes an angelic figure ready to smite the opposition. It's a great fight. Balls hard, and I killed a few elves in the process, but fun all the same. Following that up with the real X surviving Zero to fight another day, it's a touching moment, though I must push back on the whole never wanting to fight his enemies thing. You never liked fighting. How did you stop wanting to do that after Zero's death? Speaking of which, Zero 2 then follows that up with Zero fighting a whole swarm of Mavericks.
Ain't war hell?
I should point out that the Zero series doesn't change the formula in each entry. All it does is continue the storyline and make a few changes to hopefully make the gameplay feel a little more fresh. I will get out of the way that I don't care for 2 as much as 1. Some of the level design is more intrusive. This part in the frozen computer zone comes to mind. Fighting cyber elves aren't much different, though you can get these rare elves, if you care at all. Actually, were there rare elves in 0-1? Yeah, I don't really care. The base hasn't changed much, albeit with a few different NPCs. We do get lore about the Maverick portraits, though. Cool. The main villains are back with a different motivation, but they haven't changed in either personalities or strategies. The only major differences between 0, 1, and 2 is that you have new forms that impact power, speed, and defense. This one looks like the Zero suit. And the staff is replaced with a grappling hook, a change I like very much, though it can be a little wonky at points. The Raider fight is how you can yank enemies forward and even take away any shields. And it can even yank items toward you, or you can suspend them in the air. Alright. Just don't charge it, that move just kinda sucks. While this is probably not a difference, I should mention that I finally found a sub-tank, which was about as simple as getting thirsty in a desert. And I was surprised at how they changed this stupid thing. Instead of you use it, you lose it all, you only use the amount you need, which kinda turns these games from difficult to, wow, this is kinda sad. Well, most of them, Phoenix kicked my ass. And then again, it doesn't matter for some of these bosses with how easy they tend to be regardless. Is this a good segue to El Pizzo? This is a new character for Zero 2, starting out as the new commander for the Resistance. Whether a Resistance needs a commander, we'll get to. But he starts out as a commander that seems to do a decent job, while also feeling some imposter syndrome. Same dude. And you know he's going to turn, mostly because of that obviously devious design. And once the talk about the Dark Elf and Baby Elves begins, he gets more interested in the power they contain. Once we get the Baby Elves though, it gets darker than I expected. Operating an all-out assault on a community thanks only to the governing authority, calling the attack a righteous strike, dismissing Seal offering her developing fuel source to Neo Arcadia in the hopes of ending the war as a sweet illusion, and his persistence in saying that he does it for everyone in the Resistance. It's unsettling. Especially with some added imagery that can be construed as fascisty. I bet in 2003 it must have been seen as an exaggeration, but in 2025, it feels like subtle social commentary. Or maybe it was just as powerful back then, as Cyril points out later on. She believes it's wrong to bring about peace with power. It really feels poignant when you remember that these games take place a century after the X series. And what happened 100 years before now in the real world? Yeah, it's pretty surreal and prophetic seeing history repeat itself. Unlike a Hitler or Netanyahu, this fucker is more eager to get his hands dirty on his own. And for his troubles, he gets his ass handed to him. And we get bombarded back as a consequence. None of this gives him any reflection. In fact, his only mistake was to not use the Baby Elves for his conquest. Really goes to show how ego can corrupt the best of people. Holy shit, is that a Caterpie? God, I've been on a Pokemon kick as of late. It would be about time to do that Gen 2 living dex. Follow my Twitch. And subscribe while you're at it. Oh yeah, El Pizzo turned into a Nazi, killed the body of X, and Zero attacks him on both accounts. Also, both of these phases are pathetic. And despite El Pizzo's efforts, X will still live on as a digital spirit. As he kind of always has been, honestly. He also gives us some lore about the Dark Elf, how she was corrupted by a man named Dr. Weil. That name seems pretty familiar. I wonder if 03 will build up on this development. Too bad for you, because the next game on the list is Mega Man X7. Remember when I said that my knowledge of Mega Man X is mostly limited to the original? Well, I kinda lied about that. The amount of people I knew about Mega Man in general seemed to never shut up about how awful this game is. There's probably even an argument that this is the most popular X game for the infamy alone. That being said, I did play it myself once the Legacy Collections hit, and I could not go farther than the opening stage. My observation was that this game was slow, as well as the story being stupid as hell. So X retires from Maverick hunting, and because of this, an illegal group of bounty hunters known as Red Alert has popped up. If the bounty hunters are illegal, how did they get the bounty? And what about Zero? He seems to still be around and hunting the Mavericks fine. Where are the other Maverick hunters? There are others, right? Has it always been these two and we didn't really accept any other applicants? These are questions for the first 5 minutes before even grabbing the controller, mind you. And then we have Axel. Holy shit, Axel! He was part of Red Alert, leaving the group after they changed into petty, power-hungry murderers. Axel, they were illegal bounty hunters. How the fuck did you not see this earlier? The only reason Red Alert seemingly had Axel around is his DNA copy ability. You get these, I want to say flashbacks. I can't tell if they're context for what is happening or if it's happening in real time. What they tell is how Red is being corrupted by a shadowy figure and Sigma. It's always Sigma. You think the Disney Star Wars trilogy is a thing in the Mega Man universe?
The Rise of Skywalker is my favorite film.
Okay, never mind. Forget the Sigma Male affirmation voice. The Dr. Claude voice seems to fit Sigma kinda well.
If you give me the chance, I can make you invincible.
Then again, if you make his voice just a little higher, you can totally hear Alex Jones coming out of his mouth.
Destroy the child. Corrupt them all.
Now that I think about it, why is Sigma here? He should have died in X5, and X6 had him as a struggling zombie. Him being alive in good shape makes no sense beyond any comprehension. You can argue that it's a cash grab and I shouldn't question it, but if I don't question it, I have nothing to say because this game is kind of a slog to think about, let alone play. I can say that X being a whiny bitch all of a sudden is a major contributor. He's always been a proponent of pacifism, but he also realized that fighting is a necessary evil. Now he's so delusioned to the chaos happening in the world that he decides to just do nothing. You do realize, X, that the inaction of fighting terrorism means that terrorism has a reason to exist, and therefore making the chaos and frustration the entire world worse, right? Get off your high horse and fight, you self-righteous prick. He does eventually realize that he's a total dumbass, but it happens way too late because Axel and Zero may already have the chips and upgrades that X could have gotten a chance to take. Now, on the topic of Zero and Axel, they aren't much better on the personality departments. Axel isn't terrible, his voice is mostly the issue, being really grating. Overall, his existential crisis is compelling to an extent. Zero, though, what the hell did they do to you? This would be a problem moving forward, but they made Zero into a no-nonsense prick that can't bother with anything. He's always been fierce, but he always cared about the people around him. Here he doesn't care about whether or not anyone wants to do anything. Where the hell did the bromance go? I guess he's sour about not being as agile as he used to be. As you can see, this is the first time Mega Man X went 3D, and thankfully it's the last. I had to start with the Infinite stage because of course I did. And you know, it wasn't terrible at first. It started with a 2D only stage, the enemies are surprisingly easy to avoid, very easy to hit if you're using Axel, more on you in a moment. And the hostages are surprisingly easy to save despite the existence of bombs. Once it got to the second half and transported to 3D, oh fucking god! The sluggish pace, the clump of enemies surrounding hostages that seem to be impossible to save in time, and seemingly unavoidable hazards like these damn signal towers that hurt for some reason. Oh, and this is the tame fucking stage. In Snipe Eater stage, you have to deal with anti-gravity and teleporter pads. In Wing Crowing stage, you have to jumble around planes with this stage's awful sense of depth perception and clumsy plane collision when trying to grab a hostage and cart tank. In Ride Bursky stage, you have the ride armor and it drives like ass. Try to get all the hostages and bombs without taking damage and I'll give you $1 million fucking dollars. In Gugro stage, you have a gate that can't fucking open. Open says me, asshole. And when you do open it, you deal with an enemy gauntlet and the enemies fucking suck. At least you have this crab-looking ride armor that feels kinda stiff, honestly. And it works well with the Maverick himself. He's a pain in the ass as a character because he sounds like a kid.
Don't call me a kid! I ain't that no more!
Yeah, whatever, kid. And the fight takes forever with or without the weakness, frankly. That goes for most of the Mavericks, due to their counterintuitive area design, obnoxious defense and offense, irritating sound clips, and in the case of Flame Hyanard, to circle back to that bitch, all the above!
Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to...
Seriously, I can see why this guy is so Axel! Axel, stop going around and help me with this asshole! Do you want to be a Maverick Hunter or not? Oh, let's talk about Axel now, shall we? Because there's one thing that this cunt has that Zero and X can't do. As I mentioned earlier, he can take the DNA of enemies, and with that DNA, he can transform into them. I hate this with a burning passion. Not only do you have to kill the enemy with Axel's DNA gun, which is as powerful as a baby bonnet, but when you transform, the enemy is slow as dick and is only useful for one job. Man, this was probably one of the most annoying parts of the game. And I must remind you that this game had burn! He at least has a hover and decent rapid fire, which isn't nothing. But compared to X, he doesn't seem to have much more going for him. Even still, he is one of the only decent things about the game. Other things that come to mind is that there are some Mavericks that are cool ideas. Some have interesting personalities that would be worth a damn if they were in any other game. And the fact that the stages allow you to start at checkpoints after a game over, I mean, that's kinda neat. That's it, though. Not even the looks and music are that great. What is the art style they're trying to incorporate here? Why is the outline and flat shading present everywhere except for the hair? And don't even think that I finished this one. Red's fucking fight is nothing but pillars, his HP is just as high as the rest of the Mavericks, and his weakness is the one short-range weapon that takes longer than a meal in a pressure cooker to charge up. What a fucking explosion this is. And yeah, the weapon is just called Explosion. Very creative. And why does X and Axel have to share the same weapons? It's almost like they wanted to replace X in this Mega Man X game. And now it's time to go from a story about corrupted vigilantes to a story about a 100-year-old authoritarian. Now this was a bookend from Zero 2, and, well, the name of the old man is Weil, W-E-I-L. It sounds way too much like Dr. Wily for me. I mean, it's a cute reference, I'll give it that. For me, I think we need a name that represents this geriatric, insane, orange fascist just a little bit more. Donald sounds good to me. So Donald has revived the Copy X and taken hold of the Guardians to search for the Dark Elf. He also has his family of creeps that only exist to find the baby elves and do their best to destroy Zero if given the chance. Okay, this is the only time I'm gonna comment on this. These Maverick names in Zero have been some of the craziest ones I've ever had to read. Like, the naming convention has occasionally went into wordplay, but stuff like Devilbat Schilt, Tratista Calvarian, and Childre Inoribita, whatever the hell these names are, they are insane and make them easily forgettable. Some of these bitches are unsettling, though. Keep this guy away from any babies in the vicinity. Oh, god damn it. Donald getting the baby elves comes in early, thanks to, I'm going to assume, lies, and even has a backup plan to create even more dark elves just in case they, for some reason, revolt. I don't know. My memory and lackluster note-taking fail me. No, seriously, the scripting phase is my least favorite thing about the video process because I hate taking notes. I never know what to take notes of, man. Instead, I make notes about wiggly robots and the fact that the game calls me an edge boy. I don't even know what it means and I'm angry about it. I also complain about Seal and this one guy saying data several times in 1 minute. This is why pronouns are important, you fucking idiots. Now, speaking of assholes, let's talk about the time we beat up some children because they're riding a missile to the base. I've always enjoyed the three-faction war dynamic, and we get something similar with Hyperia fighting against Omega, after Copy X demoting him to nothing more than a soldier. And even after we patch him up, he refuses to help us defeat Omega and Donald and thinks he can do it himself. And with the Guardians out of the picture, Leviathan and Fear being out of commission since Omega's first attack, Donald decided to revive some of the Mudos rep plays from the first game. History will judge who the true winner was. Yeah, whatever, fascist. Convince was more Fear Wukong. As once we beat them and find the Copy X, it's learned that he was used by Donald. No shit. And that the Orange Man left a self-destruction code or device to create a sham assassination. And with a nation filled with gullible lives with plenty of food and comfort, to quote Seal, the words may have created a sense of panic. How historically symmetrical. Take that alongside creating new soldiers in the image of a superior being, the holding of sensitive data, attacking the Resistance to gather resources he needs to take over the world. It's pretty obvious that they took inspiration from the World Wars to create Donald here. We should be so lucky that politicians don't have the ability to literally mind control the masses and create chaos and violence. Although then again, Fox News might be good enough for now. Ugh, let me talk about the gameplay changes for a bit before I shoot myself. So they replaced the grappling hook and gave us a short-range knife instead. I still feel the blood pressure rising. This time we can find chips all over the place, some from enemies after taking out enough of them, and many just out in the open. Come on, I can get to it. I felt the wall a few times. I just need to keep at it. I just need to keep it up. I just need to keep at it. Some of these chips do come in the form of temporary bonuses for the head, body, or feet. The body chips are the ones with the elemental effects as long as you don't want the ability to disregard certain terrain. Wait, the body chips do that? I thought that would be the foot chips. Though the foot chips are the ones that I saw plenty of uses for. But once a double jump chip was given to me, that was practically it. I almost wish it was inherent to Zero like it was in the X games. Every time I say X games, I think of ESPN. And also an extremely goofy movie. And finally, the head chips. I didn't actually bother with these, honestly. I don't know what to say about them. They exist, I guess. I might be missing something, but that's kind of it in terms of changes. Well, except Zero. Once we fight Omega and slaughter him once and for all, after Whale starts talking about him being human, because that's a weird flex, we learn that Omega themselves are the original Zero. Honestly, I didn't see that coming, and I'm still struggling whether or not that's a good twist. It's a great fight, though. I love a good old mirror fight. The squad comes along, holds him down, and we give the original to slaughter, because even if it isn't his original body, it's still Zero, and he wants to still fight for a better world. It's a great ending, and if it weren't for the escape of Dr. Donald's, I feel that it would have been a fantastic end to the Zero series. It's a shame it isn't, but I'll complain about that later on. Because I gotta complain about Mega Man X Command Mission. This is the first, and I'm pretty sure only turn-based RPG, and I knew next to nothing about this game outside of that. I always look at howlongtobeat.com for time-saving measures, and I see that it's about 20 to 26 hours, as long as you don't 100% it. And I assumed it was one of those beginner RPGs, even one of the comments seemed to say so. I was curious at the prospect, and if I didn't like it, it still seems like it would be a light RPG to get through. Yeah, bullshit! Right off the gate, the first area of the game took me 3/4 of an hour to finish, because the place is dark as hell and everything looking the goddamn same. I backed away from this place because I thought I've already been here. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Maybe there's a tiny bit of the area I didn't bump into to progress. I can't really say, but the amount of dashing was a bit irritating, and the random energy scarf didn't seem to hypnotize me from my exhaustive rage. The battles are really fucking irritating to deal with. The multitude of bats aside, those were pretty easy. The common mantle takes minutes to knock out. I love it when the standard moves turn into tanks. Some of these enemies love status effects, like leaving viruses to sap your health, or the berserk status that can hurt others and even yourself. Christ. The variety of enemies just seemed to be lacking. Like, I'm pretty sure 70% of my fights were just different forms of Metools and Prions. Nurse Prion in particular are fucking annoying since they make the long battles even longer. I don't care if you surrender, you wasted my time, I'm breaking your joints. Oh wait, no, you got back here. Burn to the ground, you fucking bitch. I'm starting to hope that replays are exempt from the Geneva Convention. Even when it's not those types of enemies, there are still those variants of the area-specific enemies like rescue dogs? I'm starting to question my morals here. Oh my god, these rabbits. Like, the amount of bouncing was annoying enough until you learn, oh shit, they get the ability to spawn more of these bloody bastards until the end of time. Oh, my friends, listen up. If you want battles that tend to end until the sun burns out, the bosses might be the worst part of the game by a country mile because of it. These fuckers have so much health, they tend to be super strong, and the cherry on top of all of that, most of the characters you recruit are so low level that the fights feel like a war of attrition via handicap. A couple of these characters even start off at level 1? When your characters are much farther than that. Now, to be fair, there are ways to alleviate that. First off, you have mini attacks that cost a bit of weapon energy that could do some added effects. And everyone has an ultimate attack that can be activated with at least 50% of your weapon energy. Some of them do massive damage and devastating effects, and others are spiders. You'd think a Death House would do more damage than stubbing a toe. Whatever. Axel and Cinnamon have the best ones. Axel having the ability to use the boss's annoying attacks is just satisfying. And Cinnamon healing the entire team, like, that's the best one, obviously. And that's good because your sub-tanks don't hold enough to keep you going, even when you earn one for each chapter. Cinnamon also has the ability to create force metal out of battle. Think of these as badges that increase stats, status and elemental resistance, and even give specific perks like counterattacking. It's best to be aware that these increase your erosion stat. And if you have too much erosion, I don't know what happens. I never bothered to overflow my erosion stat. Even still, the standard perks didn't feel like they made a difference. Neither did the equipment either. Reminds me of a certain other blue mascot RPG. Everyone also has these transformations known as hyper mode. They don't last long. Some of them start off with only 2 turns worth. But your offense and defense is enhanced, and others having added effects, like X-Fire with an electrical element. Go figure. I immediately learned that when one of the bosses healed with electricity. Great, life is hell. Yeah, the elemental triangle from Mega Man Zero returns here, and you'd think they'd make the fights easier, and they kinda do, but they aren't that much stronger when your boss has dozens and thousands of health, like I said. Yeah, these fights have lasted at least half an hour, and if they take you out, you not only have to start over, but you have to fight any random enemies that come in your way, since checkpoints don't tend to be close to bosses. And don't even think about going back to HQ for a health refill or equipment upgrades, because you can't go back to a save station closest to the boss. Or any save station for some demented reason. That was a fucking obvious thing to do, guys. Ugh. Yeah, these bosses are so exhausting. In this fight, I was so tired that I accidentally healed one of the enemies beside him. Ugh, man. It's not like the bosses are much better in the personality department, they're just uptight fascist dickheads. The scientist guy was kind of entertaining as an exception, but then the boss happened and I wonder what kind of hell I entered. Ugh, time for round 12, I guess. Not like the characters are really anything special either. You start the game with this guy, Shadow, who turns on us because his name is fucking Shadow with a shit-eating grin, and he yeets Zero off the building for refusing to go to the dark side, with X aiming down to the floor to escape the onslaught. After that, X meets Spire, a mysterious bounty hunter that wanted to take X's bounty, and X later meets Ale that was a partner of Spider's who sacrifices himself so X can escape, and Shadow joins us to honor him. Nothing really groundbreaking there. Then they meet Steel Massimo that is actually a false identity, and gains the power of the true Steel Massimo after this horny fascist nearly crushes a woman's spine. This is the best arc in the game, and it's still kind of undercooked. You have Marino that wants to steal the force metal generator that this girl, Cinnamon, has housed in her body. This story was cute, but cute doesn't really cut it here. Also, why is Cinnamon making these noises when she's healing Marino? Stop that. Then we meet Axel when he's investigating an area that may have the answer to his own ability. And we meet Zero in the same place, making for a cute reunion. But then he gets snippy with the group because he, for some reason, doesn't trust any of them. Dude, I get Shadow was a douche, but one dude doesn't exactly disrupt your trust with anybody, right? Man, X7 really fucked you up. And that chapter, no joke, is when I quit. The pace was getting on my nerves, the character arcs weren't engaging me, the villains were stereotypical, we meet Shadow again, he falls like a bitch, and then this guy right after switches elemental weaknesses which make the fight drag. I do not recommend Command Mission under any circumstance. I wonder for whatever reason, if they added this to the Legacy Collection, the issues would have been sanded down, like working on remote cutting the boss out. Or maybe just remaster the game with that, change the save point system, or maybe just leave it be. The story in the game is not worth experiencing. Maybe it gets better at the halfway point. I doubt it, and I don't really care. Now let's get into Mega Man X8, the final Mega Man X game at the time of writing this. Well, mainline I mean. There is the remake of the first game that came out a year later, and there was Mega Man X Dive in 2019, which is more of a meta take on the series with gacha mechanics. Yeah, I personally wouldn't count that. It's still fun though. Anyway, I wasn't sure what to expect with Mega Man X8. This was after the two terrible main games, as well as the mediocre spin-off. And with how low this game sold, it practically killed the X series. At least that's what I've heard. But overall perspectives on X8, from what I've heard anyway, the game is one of the more acceptable games in the series. Not particularly great, but it can be a fun time. My friend Johnny, who is a bigger Mega Man fan than I am, however, says it was just as bad as X7. Yeah, I fucking doubted that. With that said, I didn't expect a masterpiece here. Not like the previous games have made that possible anyway. Yet the moment I played the first stage, I noticed a massive improvement. The switching mechanic was back, as well as Axel, but that's the extent of what transferred from X7. 3D gameplay is not a thing anymore, hallelujah. Instead relegating the 3D to dynamic camera angles. The movement was much faster. In fact, I think this is the fastest the cast has ever been in the series. The attack speed is faster, Axel has more of a rapid fire, which is nice. Zero feels much more flexible again, thank God. Though his dash does feel like it stops at a dime, like Christ, this is painful. X hasn't changed much, though then again, X was such a non-entity that I forgot how he felt. The game is so slick, I cannot express how good this game feels. The game was great too, they decided to redesign the trio, and I think they look great. They're much more expressive. Okay, maybe too expressive sometimes, close your mouths, guys. They do look a bit lanky at a standstill, but since you're moving constantly, you'll rarely notice it. Hell, I got used to it pretty quickly. Alien and Cygnus are back, though Douglas is missing. Now that I say that, he has been missing since X6. Is that guy okay? I'm kind of worried. His services for chip parts are now done by Pallet, a new navigator alongside Layer. This is a game for kids, right? Grittier Mega Man indeed, I guess. I mean, she's cute, and she has such adorable rapport with Zero. Must I also add that this is much better voice acting than X7? I think you already know that. I also love the 2D portraits over conversations. If you have to deal with static animations, just do this as a default, and kudos for having multiple sprites for emoting. But that sounds like a good segue to the storyline, as we get the constructed bridge to the moon known as the Jacob Project, with one of the cars sliding off and landing to Earth, causing some destruction. Thankfully, the people survive, being a whole army of Sigmas!
I just play along, take the risk, left and right, don't trust that, I already know who's fake, be good even when no one is.
Psych, there are actually new generation replays that have Sigma's DNA, all thanks to Lumine, the creator of the Jacob Project. He reassures X that these replays are immune to viruses, meaning the Sigma DNA is safe in their hands. X isn't exactly convinced, and neither should the player. This guy is clearly a freak, and we learned that the replays have Sigma's entire DNA later on. Ain't no way in hell would anyone think that Lumine is making this long-ass elevator for a good purpose. And now there are Mavericks who want to take Lumine for a particular reason. This includes the returning Vile, who Zero claims to be our sworn enemy. Dude, you haven't seen this creep since 5 games ago. He's a joke. No, seriously, he's a total joke in this game, even with that right armor. I do love the Mavericks in this one. Even some of these names are fun to say. Earthrock Trilobite, Gravity Antonian, Bamboo Pandemonium. They even managed to acknowledge a Man of War. By the way, these things are not jellyfish. They are colonies of polyps that form a single organism. A hive mind, in other words, which is absolutely brilliant for a story about Sigma clones that, here's the shock, take orders from Sigma. He was introduced halfway into the story, and I love that they made new dialogue for the Mavericks to incorporate this. This is a lot of work to put in this game. They really wanted to apologize for X7, didn't they? Oh god, and now Sigma changed his voice from Dr. Claw to Alex Jones, and he even gained the form of Diablo.
Hey boy, people want legitimacy. They want real. They want to hear somebody that can speak to them and touch them inside.
Yeah, this game is filled to the brim with religious symbolism and influence. If the things like Jacob Project or Noah's Park didn't tip you off. I don't care that much about it. It's a very common thing to see in fiction. Hell, I'm a Final Fantasy fan. I'd be a hypocrite if I complained about this shit. And that even got crazier when Sigma finally dies out and it's revealed that Luminate was behind the whole thing. Or at least he took advantage of Sigma's defeats. Okay, as predictable as this was, I actually didn't mind this twist. Like, I'm tired of Sigma being the twist villain, so this is perfectly fine by me. And dude, this guy is mad with power. He's got every Maverick desperation attack, he turns into an Archangel, and he takes out Axel as a final fuck you. I'm not gonna lie and say I'd like more out of him, but it's at least bold to see a character try to overthrow the main baddie of the series. And it does show how even if the main source of evil is defeated, there will be terrible people to take their place. And yes, this was most likely the end of Sigma, whether they knew this was the end of Mega Man X or not. He doesn't talk about his coming back this time, and his ending on the moon seems to be a visual confirmation to such, since the Sega virus can't really be spread. Maybe the Broken Crystal on Axel would work as a vessel for Sigma, which would coincide with some heart-to-hearts happening at HQ. Or maybe the copy Sigmas will take over on Earth. But it's irrelevant, since the X series hasn't resumed in over 2 decades at this point. And there may or may not even be a new addition to the story. They may have just wanted to end it, focus on Zero and ZX, and then be done with it. Nevertheless, I think X8 is a fantastic conclusion to the series if it is the end. It ends on a somber and hopeful note, which would be a solid bridge to Zero. Or Command Mission if you give a shit. And that's not even talking about the chip system and how it's so much better than previously. You can find metals for chips and can even find rare metals to build new chips like sub-tanks and effects, or even stuff like the D-Glaive for Zero. This shit is hilariously OP. Great for Optic Sunflower stage. The weapons overall are great, some of the coolest in the series. It looks great, it feels great, some of the stages are kind of annoying. Looking at Gigavolt Man of War, I swear I beat the auto-scroller here, but at least the battle is baby shit. Even still, the Maverick battles are also super fun to fight, with some incredibly exhilarating desperation attacks. Yeah, I think I really like X8. I don't get why people dislike it so much. Granted, it isn't on the level of X1 or X4, maybe not even X2, but man, this game is so good. Why do you guys never tell me? You fucking liar! Honestly, Legacy Collection 2 was worth it for this game alone. I highly recommend it. I might even come back for the hard mode. Never thought I'd think about doing such a thing for most of these games, honestly. Anyway, let's talk about 04 for a bit, and I mean a bit. I got very little to talk about here. The gameplay hasn't changed much, though instead of the rod, we got this glove that can steal weapons, which I found little use for, aside from this one weed that needed to be plucked out of the way. The Cyber Elf system is completely gone, thank you. Instead, you have one Cyber Elf that can be grown to increase health or add new properties. That's neat, I guess. The story's okay. You got this caravan from Neo Arcadia that is fleeing from Donald's authority, most of them being bigoted cunts that would murder their own if they even spoke to a Reploid. Hell, later on they leave their leader Nige for dead when they learn that she was close with this dude Kraft, dumb name there, who acts as Donald's right hand. Sure, they get over that stupidity pretty quickly, but you know, they still decided to leave her to die for roughly 5 minutes too many. Nige is cool enough. She is the only good character from this game. Kraft is kinda just a standard mook that does rebel from Donald, even though he does it by hijacking the Ragnarok, think of it as the Space Colony Arc, and he uses it on Neo Arcadia despite having innocent people there. Apathetic disregard for human life that will forever be relevant, sadly. We give a speech about giving people the right to choose their own path, he dies, and Donald still has access to the Space Death Ray. We do get a chance to kill an old man once and for all. If you can beat the final form, I swear this fight is nearly impossible. Is the grabby grab required? I don't know. I don't care. I didn't finish it. I had no desire to. The Mavericks were hit and miss, and the level design is kind of mediocre in comparison to the previous games. There's a weather system that kind of affects the landscape. I think it also affects bosses. I can't really tell you. This icon looks like a butt. That's what I'll remember from this adventure. This might actually be the most unnecessary game in the entire collection. Maybe alongside X6, but it was really going to compare the two. I mean, it's better than X6, I should clarify. It's not even a bad game at all. It's just another Zero game. Though it is a pretty underwhelming end to the Zero saga, if I'm being completely honest. Now, before we head on to the ZX Trilogy, let's take a moment to talk about Maverick Hunter X. I know I didn't spend too much time on the originals, so this could be a great way to talk about why the original is one of the best games of all time by comparing it to an excellent remake. So my love for the original came down to the following. I love the additions from the original series, including the wall jump, the armor upgrades, the dash as a result, dash jumping as a result. I love the evolution of animals being bosses, giving more creative ideas for attacks, behaviors, and even weaknesses. The weapons are the best in any Mega Man game, especially when you charge them up. Not a single weapon is a dud for me, I love them all. Even the elusive Hadouken that requires so much setup to unlock. But hell is it worth it. The soundtrack is also lacking in misses. I love listening to the entire soundtrack when I can. Even the password and pre-boss music kicks so much ass. Maverick Hunter X is mostly the same, with some changed level design so getting all your equipment isn't as easy as originally, looking at the leg upgrade obviously. There's new dialogue, the voice acting is pretty good, the soundtrack is more muted, but it's still bopping. And it's not like it matters since voices and sound effects tend to blend alongside it. It is an easier game thanks to the 3D assets. Some hazards and enemy attacks tend to be slower since there's more animation to go through. And this sadly applies to some of the bosses as well. Looking at you, Spark Mandrill, you pathetic malfunction of a robot. I'm not sure if that made grammatical sense, but I'll stick with it. Storm Eagle is the exception though, because they decided to change Epic's tactics. Because we needed them to be more obnoxious, I guess. Sadly, unlike Mega Man Powered Up, a similar remake to the original Mega Man on PSP, you can't play as the Mavericks just for a gag. Instead, when you finish the game, you get to play as Vile. He kinda sucks. He's got rapid fire, 3 special moves, and his weapon energy is shared and recharged. I could not beat the highway stage because, for some reason, they overhaul the enemies, and I keep getting weapon pickups despite them being completely pointless. I'll stick to the main game, thank you. Like Powered Up though, there were plans to keep going with the X remakes, and I would have been all down for that. Imagine X3, X6, and X7 being actually good. Unfortunately, Capcom loved to put their remakes on the PSP, and they sold horribly for that reason. And sadly, Maverick Hunter is stuck on the PSP, which would have been a great addition to the Legacy Collection. All the collection got for the game was the Day of Sigma cartoon. It's a good watch, kind of a retcon of X4, but this was supposed to be a reboot anyway. I definitely recommend giving it a look, but why wouldn't you put the entire game on here? Are PSP games just difficult to port? I get the resolution is pretty hazy, but we port DS games fine. I guess it's a different thing. But speaking of the DS, we got a third and currently final set of games in this sequel series on this handheld. We only got 2 games to go over, and I'm gonna be frank, these games do not give me a lot of positive things to say. In the first game, you get to choose between a boy named Vent and a girl named Ale. The difference is superfluous, only having different flavor text or a couple of exclusive side quests. They have the same backstory about their dead mother from a trip to the park, they have the same occupation, delivering packages with this dude named Jiro, and they become the chosen one to this weird thing called Model X. Take a guess what Model X is supposed to be. And later on we learned that Jiro was the holder of Model Z, go figure. And we learn about the Resistance, led by Prairie, heavily implied to be Alouette from the Zero games. Their mission is to stop the CEO of Slither Inc., Serpent, clever, as he's collecting biometals to pretty much rule the world. The strange thing is, the people in the city he practically governs see Serpent as a hero, believing that without him, human and Reploid life would be a living hell. Which makes some sense, as he was a survivor of the Maverick attacks and wants to keep people safe. The problem is, his ideas of being safe is keeping everyone confined in inner space, and deems everyone who doesn't conform to his way of life a threat. This ideology is burnt into the minds of everyone in inner space, as they see the player character as suspicious or threatening when in any form other than human. Some are even dumb enough to threaten police action 1 second, but be totally calm the next second after you change. This is what global isolation does to you. I could compare all this to America over the past 50 years, but I feel like it's obvious. And I unsurprisingly got a lot of Musk vibes from Serpent. Stupid crazed billionaires. And the villains are fucking nothing. Every Maverick is forgettable, aside from the giant gorilla in an abandoned children's playground. That's kind of disturbing. There was Prometheus and Pandora. I remember them because they were practically the twist main antagonists, using Serpent as a puppet. Oh my god, the Elon Musk comparisons are worse when you actually think about it. It's an okay story. The overall thing does feel undercooked in comparison to Zero, or even some of the X games. There were plenty of times that created so much mood whiplash that I needed a neck brace. Though it's not the story I had a huge issue. Let me right away get into being a bitch by complaining about the world design. Look at this map! I'm sure more than half of my playtime was finding out where the fuck I'm supposed to go. The map says I have to go right, yet I go to the opposite way when I do. Sometimes I will go to the right, and I will go right. Sometimes Source create another pathway, and that makes everything more frustrating because this ain't no 3D map. This ain't no Metroid Prime. Yeah, this is a Metroidvania, or at least it's trying to be a Metroidvania, but it falls in every regard. You need some Maverick abilities to progress, but the real way of progressing is these key cards after beating the next Maverick. Thanks for the green card, would have made my life easier if you gave it to me right away. You get more forms from the Maverick's biometals, and you will use Model H almost exclusively, the rest just don't compare. The bosses are the best thing in the game, you'd hope so for a Mega Man game anyway. Some of them sort of creep me out conceptually. Elor reminds me of the demon child from Conquer. I don't get the level system though. What constitutes a level 1 victory to a level 2 or 3? I don't have a clue. It seems like a big deal because you get chances to fight them again, which is so frustrating when I need to get a side quest done. Speaking of which, these are just fine. They give you some good amount of crystals for upgrading your biometals. This leveler quest? God, this was annoying. Just going back and forth and forward and back and then forward and back and put 1 foot forward. With the high-pitched chirping after completing a quest lingering for a minute because the terminals can't be too close now. It did give me some laughs from the girl though. Yeah, this guy is a schmuck. But then they go and say that she'll miss him when he learns that he has to go to a different group. Bitch, this guy harassed you several times and now you're going to miss him? Is this some kind of kink for you? Otherwise, the game is a miserable experience, and it may be nauseous having to play Advent. And I hear it wasn't much better. Though playing it is at least better in the world design. You get an actual map for starters. The terminals are more consistent, though there are separate ones for teleporting out and in. That's kind of stupid. But the output teleporters are very common. That's nice at least. Even though activating them requires crystals. Okay, fine. And while the map is better, the fact that there are circles and not the standard Metroid map style is weird. Nevertheless, it is a massive improvement from ZX. I like the level design better here too. The pace is much more breakneck, and the level gimmicks are more memorable. Okay, in order to talk about my biggest gripe in the game, we need to talk story, and it's about as decent as previously. There's actual voice acting in the game, and it's kind of...
You again. You just don't give up, do you?
Who's that girl?
Yeah, it's kind of bad. Hilariously bad. Especially when the voice lines get cut because the word boxes can't fit it all, causing a lot of abrupt pauses. I played the Ash storyline because I loved her design over Gray. Though from what I saw when I looked into Gray, they have differing storylines, so maybe a second playthrough is in order in the future. Whatever the case, Ash is kind of annoying at first, not gonna lie. She's cocky, arrogant, and her insistent on saying booty every chance she gets feels forced as all hell thanks to the bad voice acting. I'll at least appreciate her sex-positive attitude. The booty in question happens to be a biometal, no surprise. And what is also expected is that this biometal is Model A, who is obviously supposed to be Axel, though Model A is more timid and cautious in comparison to Axel's more trigger-happy nature. It makes you wonder what happened that changed his outlook. It does make for a great dynamic between the two, causing him to be more proactive when Ash starts getting an existential crisis. The cause of said crisis comes in the form of the Sage Trinity, 3 old men that are obvious references to the 3 doctors in the classic games. And yeah, Albert is the villain. It's not a twist when the evidence is right in front of you guys. And to take him out, we have to locate and destroy the remaining pieces of Model W from the last game. Most of the Mavericks are en route to these pieces, and they are good fights. And you don't just get their weapons, you get their entire bodies. And god, these forms are a mixed bag. Ugh, Christ. When I said Model A was based on Axel, I mean he was based on Axel. Warts and all. When you get the humanoid Mavericks, they're what you'd expect. In fact, they're the same as they were in ZX. It's the animal-like Mavericks that piss me off. A couple of them are fine, but the majority of them are clunky to control, or practically impossible to control, and only have one purpose. It makes for fun puzzles, but this is freaking stupid, and very tedious when you get over 10 of these abilities. Christ on a bike, this dude is massive, and slow as fucking dick. These abilities aren't very fun for most of my playtime, except this dude. He's a funny little dude. I like him. Advent was a decent time and a pretty good sequel to ZX. The level design is more coherent, and the mystery throughout the game is intriguing despite the lame starting point. I wish the map system was more transparent, but it gives more context than that abomination. Whatever the case, if you want to play a ZX game, I'd much rather recommend this one over the original. And you get the player of ZX as a boss, meaning you get to play as them, so there you go. No need for the original. Okay, I'm being a dick at this point, sorry ZX fans. There were plans to make a third game, which was revealed in a 2021 livestream, hilariously enough. If you play through ZX Advent, there seem to have been some hints to it happening. But I guess Capcom wasn't confident in the project. Then again, this was when Mega Man projects were being cancelled left and right, including the first-person reimagining of Mega Man X. Yeah, I'm glad they killed that one, that looked hokey as shit. We wouldn't get anything X-related in any form until Mega Man X died, which like I said earlier is nothing more than a gacha game for the entire Mega Man series. And there was a mobile game in development called Mega Man XZ Time Rift. God, that was a weird title. Kinda sounds like a ZX sequel, but they switched the letters around. It was supposed to be connecting tissue for Mega Man X and Mega Man Zero, but it was canceled because of layoffs at Nebula Sky and underperformance from Devil May Cry Peak of Combat. Guess it wasn't Peak after all. I never even heard of the game. When the hell did I change my fit? Yeah, you can tell I'm taping this much later. In the original footage, I was rambling a little bit, and the audio was also sloppily edited. You can kind of tell throughout this entire video. I'm actually using Audacity instead of Adobe Audition like I used to. For reasons I'm not going to get into, just going to say, fuck Adobe. I know that's surprising for many of you, but that's neither here nor there. I've also been struggling with this video. I wanted this video out by May or June at the very latest. I had the script up and ready. It's almost September, which means things have been going on, obviously. Mental health has been spiraling, mostly thanks to making a politically slanted video in the middle of a heavily politically messy time. That was a choice. So I decided to take my time with the editing and figure out a way to just do better with the scheduling, especially with doing like leisure and stuff like playing video games on my own, watching more movies, getting back into the dating scene, stuff like that. Things are just changing right now. But that's neither here nor there. What I am gonna say is, like I was gonna say in the original footage, I know things are dire right now. Things are absolutely chaotic. Like, if you're living in the United States, you know exactly why things are going crazy with the current administration and states doing their lovely little thing. My home state of Utah is doing a lot of fun stuff. Really want to go into that, but I don't want to really drag a lot of the politics into this, even though I really, really want to. And it's not just the United States. Like, the United States is definitely like impacting a lot of stuff that was already pretty bad already, like the war in Ukraine and Gaza and other places that I don't even know. There's probably more that I'm not even aware of, but the world's gone to shit, obviously. We're probably going to go into another world war, as far as I'm concerned. But to the people that are being impacted by a lot of this, like the ice raids, the 2 wars, anything else, honestly, the only thing I can say is just keep going. Like, I'm not doing great myself, and I'm privileged. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I know I'm autistic. I know I'm asexual. I'm atheist. Like, those are things that America does not really particularly like. But at the end of the day, I am a white male. At a distance, I have nothing to worry about, honestly. But to anyone else that isn't, like this, I want you to know that we're here. We're here fighting alongside you. There are plenty of people that are not. There are plenty of people that just want people that aren't just like them just gone. But tough for them. That's all I can really say. So just keep going. The only real way to shut them up is to, exist. Like, existence out of spite is more valuable than you may think. Like, it's something that I need to worry about myself. And I talked about rambling in the original video. Doing this unscripted is very hard. I had like a skeleton on my phone, but nope, not happening. I think that's a sign that I need to just end this video right now. So just keep fighting, and just don't get discouraged. Keep fighting the administration, keep fighting the wars and all that. And hopefully we'll get through this together. Also, play Mega Man X. Mega Man X is pretty good. Maybe it'll help you keep fighting and be hopeful for the future. Maybe some of you are very much like X and just want to make things just work without having to fight, but you can't. Life doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Also, fuck Donald Trump.